What's up, YouTube? This is your boy John from the Jersey Shore, and I am back with you today to give you my review of the 1974 legendary film, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was written by Kim Henkel and Tobe Hooper. It was directed by Tobe Hooper, starring Marilyn Burns, William Vale, and Gunnar Hansen as Leatherface. So our story begins with five 20-somethings traveling through the roads in Texas. They're going to pay a visit to their grandfather's grave. Well, two of their grandfather's graves, Franklin and Sally. Their brother and sister, they're going to see their grandfather's grave, and the other three are just tagging along. While they're on their way to this grave site, you hear they pass by a slaughterhouse, and Franklin immediately goes into a spiel about the newer technique in killing cattle, which they use an air gun, like a air bolt gun, to kill the cattle. Whether that technique is better than the old technique where they used to just beat them in the head with a sledgehammer. It's a pretty joyous conversation. Franklin also mentions in this conversation that this was where his grandfather used to sell his cattle. He used to sell them to the slaughterhouse. So after they're having this just wonderful conversation, they drive a little further down the road and they see a hitchhiker. They mention that it's boiling hot out here. They got to pick the poor guy up. So they open up the door. They let this guy in the van, and he is a complete wacko. He's a quack job. He gets in the van. He's noticeably fidgety. He's sweaty and fidgety. He talks oddly. He's got a bag around his neck, like a little purse that looks like it's made out of animal hide. He pulls out a couple of pictures. He gets into a conversation with Franklin about the slaughterhouse. So he pulls out a couple Polaroids that he has, or I don't know if they're Polaroids, a couple pictures that he has, and he gives them to Franklin. And you don't get a real good look at these pictures, but you get a good enough look at the pictures that you can see that they are pictures of slaughtered animals. This guy says that he used to work there. Then they get into a conversation about head cheese for whatever reason. The guy says it's delicious. Franklin agrees. After you see Franklin, you will not be surprised that Franklin agrees that head cheese is delicious. So they go back and forth. Eventually a little penknife comes out. The guy that they picked up takes the penknife and he cuts into his own hand. Everybody in the van is completely freaked out. Franklin takes the knife back. I believe, it was Franklin's knife. Franklin takes the knife back. This guy eventually takes a picture of one of the other characters in the van, sits it on top of a little, I guess it's like a bucket, upside down bucket. I don't remember exactly what it is. He sits the picture on top of something, then reaches back into his little animal purse, pulls out what appears to be gunpowder, puts gunpowder on top of the picture, and sets the picture on fire. So now this guy has cut himself open in the back of the van. He has had a very in-depth conversation about head cheese. He started a fire in the back of the van, and as they're pulling over to kick this guy out of the van, he grabs a hold of Franklin, takes out his own knife, and cuts Franklin. Jumps out of the van pulls away, he's spitting at the van, or I don't know what in the world you even call it. He's making like raspberry sounds at the van, and he's rubbing blood on the side of the van. The van takes off, and now you think we're done with this guy. Well, you hope we're done with this guy. You are not done with this guy. But you're done with him for now. Eventually the van stops and our characters, all five of our characters, get out and they start exploring an old abandoned property. Franklin seems to be somewhat familiar with the area. He tells a couple people, if you go over there, there's a path down between those, over in that direction, there's a path that'll take you down, you can go swimming. Now eventually a couple of our characters find a house. They go up to see this house. Well, they spot the house, and they just talk about maybe we can go up there and we can borrow some gas from them. We can leave them your guitar as a payment for the gas. We can get in the truck. We can go get some gas. We got to drive back past here anyway. When we come back past, we can return their gas. We can pick up your guitar and we can head home. So, with that brilliant idea in mind, they make their way up to this house. The girl, it's a guy and a girl that are having this conversation about the gas and the guitar and the returning the gas, whatever. So these two approach this house. She sits down on a swing, and the guy goes up to the house, knocks on the door. Nobody answers the door. So when nobody answers the door, what do? You walk right into the house, of course. So after our character illegally enters this house, he walks straight down a hallway towards another area of the house. And the area that he's walking toward has a red wall, and it has old, like, cattle skulls on it. It's very enticing. It's, obviously something, you should feel real comfortable walking into this house after you see this. So as he is approaching and he's getting closer to what the red wall, he's greeted by a fine young gentleman dressed in a butcher's apron, a mask made of human skin, and a really nice tie. What a stupid ass. So that's it. I'm not going to give you any more details about this movie. I'm going to go ahead and assume that if you're watching this video, you're probably a horror movie fan. And if you're a horror movie fan, I'm assuming that you've seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, not the remake. This movie is absolutely legendary. There's a few things that I'm not real crazy about in this movie. Firstly, I would say that the character of Franklin, he's in a wheelchair in this movie, and with that aside, he's probably right up there at the top of the list of the least likable characters that I've ever seen in a horror movie. I thought his acting was terrible. I thought his performance was just overall was terrible. And who knows, maybe he did exactly what the director, Tobe Hooper, wanted him to do. I don't know whether that's the case or not. So maybe he put on a wonderful job acting because that's what the director wanted. But I hated it. I couldn't stand this character, and I couldn't wait to see him gone so that I didn't have to listen to him anymore. I mean, the acting overall in this movie wasn't spectacular, but it is what it is. I mean, this was an old, low-budget, no-name film that was being made by somebody in like terrible situation. It was made. I believe I remember watching on the bonus features of this that they made this movie for next to no money. I believe it was $140,000 that they made this movie. They made it in absolutely smoldering heat with total inexperience with the actors and the director. It was just a bunch of people making a film for no money in terrible conditions, which ultimately turned out to be one of the most important movies in the history of horror movies. So there are 5 characters in the movie. I already talked about Franklin. I couldn't stand that dude. I couldn't wait to say goodbye to him. And then you had Kirk, Jerry, and Pam. Those 3 characters are like the middle characters. You had the terrible character. These are the 3 characters in the middle that were, I guess they're okay. I mean, I didn't care whether they were there or whether they were not there. They ultimately didn't mean anything. They were just basically put there in order to help our main killer in the movie get his body count up. And then there was Sally. Sally, of the 5 characters, of the 5 good guys in this movie, Sally was the only one that really seemed to serve any purpose. She's the only one that really helped the storyline. And my opinion, obviously. I just felt like the other 4 characters, other than Sally, were basically there solely to be killed off. There was no meat on the bone with these characters. They didn't mean anything at all. But that one character that did mean something was Sally, portrayed by Marilyn Burns. I thought she was good. I mean, she wasn't fantastic. She's not going to win any Academy Awards for this performance. But she did a pretty solid job of putting the feelings of being completely freaked out and scared to death on camera. She did a good job at that, so I can't knock her. And then there's the family that all these guys deal with, the people who actually live inside of that house. Everybody knows who Leatherface is. That was Gunnar Hansen. I actually met Gunnar Hansen at a horror convention many years ago, and he was the nicest, soft-spoken, friendliest, gentlest guy you ever want to meet in your life. It's kind of shocking that that was the dude who was behind that mask in this movie. But you had him, and you had the goofball that they picked up that cut his hand in the van earlier, the hitchhiker. You had the father of the hitchhiker, who was some dirtbag. You saw him working at a gas station. He's the owner of a gas station they went to early in the movie, and you actually run into him a couple different times in the movie. And then you have Grandpa. Grandpa is one of the more recognizable characters in this movie. If you're into horror movies enough, I have no doubt whatsoever you've seen that guy's image around. He's basically a zombie or a mummy, or he looks like he's about 480 years old, and they have him sitting in a chair, and they have him trying to kill the Sally character with like a mallet or a hammer, and he can't even hold the thing. He's so old he can't even hold the thing in his hands. The family as a whole are just wacky. They're just messed up. They're fun to watch because they're so messed up, but at the same time, they're annoying as hell. I don't know. I liked it. This is one of my all-time favorite movies, so I can't complain too much about it. I'm doing an awful lot of complaining about a movie that I actually really love. I think one of the shining stars in this movie is actually the set department. The house itself is completely filthy. You feel like you need to take a shower when you get done watching this movie just because of the setting alone. There's bones, and there's chickens hanging from the ceilings in cages. So you get the feeling almost that there's just chicken shit all over the floors in this house. There's feathers, there's human bones, there's lamps made out of flesh, there's couches made out of bones, chairs and tables made out of bones, there's teeth all over the place. It just is sincerely grotesque. I have to assume that a large part of the budget for this movie was just creating the atmosphere that you're in. I think a lot of the reason that this movie is so favored and so beloved by a lot of the people in the horror community is, A, it's a good movie, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of hokey crap that you can pick apart when you're doing a review on it because you examine the movie more than just sit and enjoy it. But I think that it's primarily because of its importance in horror movie history. Tobe Hooper making this movie, it was just fearless. He was doing things that had never been put on film before. This movie was banned from several countries, and it was just considered shocking when it came out. The very beginning of the movie, there is text scrolling, and it's being narrated that it gives you the impression that this is real. It's not real. It's loosely based on the Ed Gein murders from many moons ago in Wisconsin. It's loosely based on that. There was no Leatherface. Leatherface, I think, is supposed to be loosely based on Ed Gein, which is a much different story. The reality is much scarier than this one is, because it's reality, obviously. Whatever. But yeah, I think that this movie is so beloved, up to and including myself, because of its importance. It opened the doors for a whole lot of things to come years down the line. I think what Tobe Hooper did here was, like I said, absolutely fearless, and I love this movie. It's deeply uncomfortable, it's deeply disturbing, it's absolutely gross, you feel completely skeeved out watching it. I absolutely love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It is as important as any horror movie that has ever been made. So yeah, folks, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. Its importance to the history of horror movies cannot be overstated. If you have not seen this movie, what are you doing? Go find it. Buy it, rent it, do whatever you gotta do. Watch it. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Legendary. Alright folks, that is going to do it for my review of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you really like this video and you are enjoying my content, please do me a huge personal favor. Click that subscribe button, and after you click that subscribe button, remember to ring that notification bell. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Have a kick-ass day, and thank you for watching.